Good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Tran, and I'm just very excited to be spending my Tuesday evening with you here. I understand it's the last one of the series, so something to celebrate, and I'm hoping that it'll be an exciting one. I've got my tea with me, and hopefully you've got a beverage as well, or maybe having dinner. I eat dinner early these days with my son before 6, so I'm good and I'm ready to go. I guess before jumping in, I just want to share how honored I am to be, sharing the floor with a panel of such experienced and intelligent women. I've actually taken the time to watch and listen to all the previous sessions before mine today. So I don't know if I get a certificate or not, Serena, but all this to say that I feel like I'm here with you. And what I'm hoping to do today is to weave a lot of the themes that have been shared in previous sessions through my lens, because the previous speakers have just shared some amazing tools and best practices and resources, sort of the what and the how to go about starting your own business or entrepreneurship in general. In today's session, I want to hit a little bit on the why, and even before the why about your specific business, i.e., what you stand for, and all the rest of it, your personal why and why you're embarking on this entrepreneurship journey, because it is a journey. So I want to make sure that we've got little pockets of time where you can take a step back and do a bit of reflecting. The title of the session is called Setting Up for Success. And of course, in order to talk about success, we need to understand what success means to you, how you define it, but to also talk about the other side of the coin, which is when things go wrong or perhaps not what you expected. So I'll be sharing some stories without using any names. The ones that I do, I've received consent. But I think this is one of the benefits from having been in the innovation ecosystem for over a decade now. So I'm really excited to share some thoughts and stories. I obviously my preference is always to have more of an interactive session, but in listening to the previous sessions, I understand that it's a very big group, so I totally get it. But please use the chat function. I think you have the ability to unmute. If you do, feel free to chime in. It is just always better when it is a conversation, so it's not just a one-way street. It's just that we can have a bit of a conversation. So I would love that if you feel comfortable enough to unmute and chime in, or definitely use the chat function. I think Serena will help me just keep an eye on things. So let's jump right in. I think we'll open with a quick fun poll, seeing that we're here at the end of the program of this particular cohort. I just want to know how everyone's feeling, just touching base to see. So I think Serena's got the poll up. So, how do you feel? 1, pumped, let's do this, ready to, kick some butt. Second, or 2, having second thoughts, ... or 3, somewhere in between. Just taking a look here. Okay, pumped. Let's do this. That is awesome. I don't know if there's more coming in, Serena, or is that about everyone that's answered? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. And somewhere in the middle, and that's fine too, as the second highest, result here, or interesting material, but having second thoughts, and that's fine too. What I'm hoping is, as part of this entire series, obviously we're giving the tools and the know-how and, what we can impart when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting a business. But as entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that's okay too. We'll talk a little bit about intrapreneurship. And also maybe there's a role for you in the ecosystem like mine or another. So all good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to advance, and can everyone still see my presentation? Okay, great. So as I mentioned, what I hope to achieve in tonight's session is again to weave and summarize some of the key points from what we've heard from previous speakers through my experience and perspective. As I mentioned, I've been in the innovation ecosystem for over a decade now. at different capacities. So I, in terms of an agenda, I want to take some time to share with you my personal journey, how I got to where I am today, but also just to provide that context in terms of the perspective and view that I bring in working with companies of all sizes, various industries over the past years. And then I do want to share, a bit more tools and resources. You'll see from my journey that in terms of tools and resources for what I can share, something like grant writing or positioning for a successful grant or loan. I'm going to focus more on the non-dilutive applications. That is to say, not an investment memorandum if you're looking at external investments. So there's a bit of a difference there. So I want to just share some tips and tricks and just, some things from what I've observed from both supporting the company directly, but also on the reviewer side, as I've spent some time on that side of the equation as well. And as I mentioned, just to take a sort of a breather, and I think it is always go, go, go. I'm sure many of you, even tonight, having to get a bunch of stuff off your plate before you can join the session. I know I had with a little one, but it's important to take a step back. And so before we jump into or starting a new venture, I think that constantly checking in with yourself is quite important to make sure that what success means to you still aligns with your values and priorities. And then I think what I'll do is we'll take a quick break. I don't know where we'll end after that piece. Maybe hopefully it'll be around 7 p.m. We'll take a quick break and then we'll come back. And I've done a bit of a Twitter style thread of just key takeaways, which is really a compilation of my random thoughts and what I've observed into just a series of 20-ish points. So we'll go through that together. And then at the end, we'll take some time for reflection and discussion. As I mentioned, chime in throughout, but if it's also, maybe more appropriate, we'll definitely leave some time at the end to chat some more. So a bit about my journey. I think, when in preparing for today's session, Serena had shared with me that unlike last year's, which I did as well, that the group will be more service-based. And so I was really excited to hear that because customer service, customer-centric, customer front-facing, has always been the role that I've played even before my professional career, even when I was in high school and, selling seafood as an example and working directly with customers, working as a fishmonger. But service-based businesses really resonate with me. So in preparing for today's session, I took a step back to do some reflection of my own. And some of the key things that have been mentioned by previous speakers, I think that they try to get you to really think about putting yourself in your customers' shoes. So I did some reflection on what are the service-based businesses that I adore, that resonates with me, and why they are my favorite service-based businesses. So I, thought about whether it's an influencer that I follow on social media. One particular one, I initially followed her for her free spirit, her ability to travel around the world, her sense of adventure. But then I also just, followed her narrative and saw how she grew through her art and her work, and at various times being vulnerable with her audience and with her customers. And so I think that it takes a lot. It's very brave to be putting yourself out there, obviously, and I commend all of you guys for considering this as a potential, path for you. So that really resonated with me. And then through time, I feel like I know this person. I think we all can, relate to that. And in the end, it was kind of service-based at first, but then she developed some products and I've just supported her through not anything that she's put out there, but a lot of the products that she has, put out there to the community, just because I really just do believe in her. So think about that for a minute, right? Think about the businesses that you love and enjoy, and the, why do you do it? Another one that came to mind is why did I leave a low fee gym to join a boxing gym that kicks my butt? Well, precisely because they kick my butt, and results and their value proposition is really walk in, walk out. There's no schedule, and every time that you are there, you're with a trainer that is working right there with you. So a really compelling value proposition, but in addition to that, just a sense of community. So the people that you start to build a relationship with, and that you see every day. So those are the things that went through my mind when I think about service-based businesses, and thinking about, of course, it's about the quality, but I think the one thing that I'm trying to get across here is it's really about the story that you tell, and who are you as a founder in a business, and what do you stand for. In terms of a professional, journey, going from always customer focused, that's continued into my professional career, always being in a business development role, and specifically here in the tech and innovation space for the past, as I mentioned, for the past over a decade. So it's been a while, but at different capacities. I started off in the world of SHRED, as they call it, Scientific Research and Experimental Development. It's a tax credit program, an incentive program to encourage small, medium businesses to do exciting technology advancement work. So taking high risk work and to then being not rewarded, but to take the risk and then being able to take advantage of the tax credit that you can get by doing these activities. So Shred has become quite the industry from when I started off. This is now over 10 years ago now, and I first started off as a technical writer working directly with businesses, whether it's the engineering team or the management team, and understanding their iterative approach and their struggles, and helping them navigate this very complex world of Shred. And that's where I started off. I eventually joined the business, and continued on with them as we grew as a company to Western Canada, and spent some time out there, and then came back to the GTA. So more on this later. And then I joined the Ontario Centers of Excellence, or Ontario Centers of Innovation as they are known today. And I will say that my network grew the most during my time at OCE or OCI. The reason is because the organization just did such a tremendous job working with all the players in the ecosystem. So I'm talking about directly with entrepreneurs, growing businesses, to established businesses, very large businesses, to working with students. And of course, when we talk about students and experiential learning, we're also talking about the colleges and the universities in the ecosystem, and all the way to incubators and accelerators like Y-Space. And ultimately, OCE is a funder, all right? So we, give grants and funding out to support innovation in various industry. We were industry agnostic. So that was a very unique lens. And all the way to, we also had a portfolio in supporting companies that are ready to scale, and a investment portfolio to co-fund and support some of these companies as they were seeking external investments. So I must say that was quite a unique experience, and really provided all sorts of perspectives for me, including how different levels of government work, mandates from different sources of funding. So I'm excited to share that piece with you in the grant writing session. So I think all of this together, at the end of my journey of OCI, I became, someone or an advisor working with companies, not as somebody that's, been in started my own company, been there, done that, like the wonderful speaker Anu from STEM Minds. But certainly a unique perspective, having worked with so many companies and so many entrepreneurs, and starting to see patterns, and why some are successful and some are not, and why some have changed different paths and different directions and founders. So I think that, hopefully today, through sharing stories, or some observations, I'm able to impart some of that. Sabermetrics was a company I joined after OCI, after spending a lot of time helping companies as a consultant to working as a funder and providing funding. I just really wanted to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty, so to speak. So I joined a really exciting company called Sabermetrics, and they provide real-time analytics using machine learning and AI in food safety and food waste management. So my time there wasn't long, but I definitely felt like, and for those of you that are in a startup mode already, it's just so intense, right? It's so intense. So for the months that I spent, I think I spent almost 6 months, it felt like a really intense internship. And on top of that, I joined as their director of business development. But again, as you know, in the world of entrepreneurship, if you're with a startup or a growing company, you're wearing multiple hats, like just multiple hats. And so that was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. And then I stepped away for a bit. I had my son at the beginning of 2020, luckily right at the beginning of COVID. And so that was obviously a unique time for all of us and a very unique experience. So when I was ready to enter back into the workforce, it was different, needless to say. But I was very lucky that I was able to lean on my network that I have built over the years. And I joined SOSIP Consortium, as Serena mentioned. And SOSIP is the technology partner in the innovation ecosystem. So while OCI is a funder, SOSIP provides technology infrastructure such as a cloud environment or access to our high performance computing, so supercomputers for companies and academic institutions to collaborate and to do R&D and to try different things on the system. So it's been it, and obviously I'm still with SOSIP, but my hat that I'm wearing today is hopefully just representing a bit of everything here, and not just SOSIP. But yeah, so that is a bit about my professional career. And I think something that struck me quite strongly, as I guess, again, I was thinking about tonight's session, was I have been with a service-based business and company that have seen great success. And so, one of the things I want to share today is really actually right at the beginning, even before Ernst& Young, I was with a company called OME Group Consultants, and really the world of Shred for me started here. My professional or my more academic background is in science and business, but OME Group was a sister business to a medical diagnostic equipment company. And Shred was something that the medical equipment company took advantage of because it made sense. They're doing lots of R&D, so taking advantage of the tax incentive programs it was almost budgeted, right, every single year. So Shred was something the company did, but then they spun off into a sister company that provided this service for others because the program was, and I would say still is, not the most straightforward to navigate. So having a team behind you, especially as a business owner, when you just need to run your business, having some guidance from a consultant can be helpful. So what was started as a opportunistic approach by this medical diagnostic company and spinning out OME Group Consultants, we were helping SMEs through their Shred journey. But we were growing very well organically. We saw amazing growth, demand. And it got to the point where, it was time to listen to our customers and to do something. And when I tried to think of OME Group as a case study for as a service-based business, and tried to put it into a lean startup or like a lean startup or business lean canvas model, it was very interesting to me because obviously we talk about the lean startup methodology, but I never thought back to OME Group. And the reason, when I think back to our value proposition and why we were successful, we were truly providing an end-to-end solution to businesses that, should tap into a tax incentive program like this because it is cash back into the company so they can reinvest into innovation. It was low risk given that our revenue and pricing strategy was based on success, which means that the company doesn't pay us until they get paid by the Canada Revenue Agency. So it was a bit of a win-win. The end-to-end piece is really if the company gets audited, we're also providing additional support that way because nobody likes to get audited. So having a team behind you again to provide support and guidance was helpful. And then, at our core, we provided exceptional customer service. Exceptional customer service. We had a very good and high success rate in claims going through. We built a very strong reputation with a CRA. We demonstrated knowledge. We were truly at the top of our game. And also, the OME group was around early days. So we took a bit of a not first mover, but early mover advantage, so to speak. So if you find that your business you have that advantage, definitely you gotta seize the moment and really see what you can do to make that count. So then when we got to the point where we had to listen to data, and if you remember, there was such a great session to share about, tracking everything, and data is everything, metrics, and, very quickly you can start to see a story forming. So we decided as the company or upper management at the time, took a bit of a shift. We noticed, and now when I think back, we invested in marketing. We started creating channel partners that made sense for us, whether that was other accounting firms that didn't do shred, maybe it was legal firms that had worked with other growing businesses that we can also relate to institutions or groups that provided funding to businesses. So, capital to growing companies. So all these strategic partners that we start to identify now, just help position us to bring in more business and even more business and growth. And then I would say that the turning point for OME at the time was there was also new leadership, to provide guidance in how we grow and scale. We know that early days of a startup is very different from when you hit sort of a critical mass or whatever that may be, and you're in growth and scale mode. And, that is quite different. So we had somebody very experienced come in that led the team. We were essentially not a team of kids, but a team of like early career folks. And so I think that, for me, my time at OME, I grew a lot personally and professionally. And then ultimately, we created a very attractive book of business, where the people were the greatest assets. And ultimately, OME Group was acquired by Ernst & Young in 2011. So that was just incredible. It was extremely exciting. All of a sudden, a job as a consultant, I think the team at the time, saw this as becoming a career. We were joining a very well-respected brand. There was mutual benefit. We joined them to help them fill a void within their firm. EY is a recognized brand, top 4 accounting firm globally, now had the capacity, a team of knowledgeable consultants to help service the mid-market and growing businesses. So that complemented their business model quite well. So we, I still have great friends that work at Ernst & Young and that have moved into leadership roles. So when I put this case study together, really reflecting my time at OME, I mean, quite incredible to look at a service-based business, what, came together because of opportunity and timing, but really taking the data when it did come in and doing something with it. And ultimately, we built a book of business that was quite attractive to be acquired by, a big group like EY. So that's definitely something I wanted to share. It was a bit of a light bulb for me when I went through, put together this, when I was putting this presentation together. So in addition to working directly with companies, this slide I used in my last talk, and it's just incredible because more names have added to it. And what you're seeing here is entrepreneurship really truly in my own backyard. So in addition to working with companies, as a shred consultant to my time at OCE, to, just with other capacities in the innovation ecosystem, I've just always been surrounded by entrepreneurs, starting from my dad and my brother and cousins and aunts, and now currently life partners. I just always seem to be surrounded by entrepreneurs. I don't know if I'm attracting them, but certainly there's a lot that I lean in on and just try to learn from the ups and the downs. And I think that that's definitely something I want to be, open and honest about. I think we all can appreciate that it's not all always, rosy and great, but there are, of course, ups and downs, as is life, right? Um, and so this slide, when I put it together, it didn't even include some of the other businesses within my own network and community, that have started during COVID. So during the past few years now, I guess, I have a cousin that started her journey as a personal trainer, and she's had a very interesting and exciting time in her journey as an entrepreneur, where she started with a few customers to now she's got tens and 20s of customers. And so she's, on this path to growing. And so things are looking, great for her. Obviously, it's very busy. She's very much into it. And she's always honing that personal message from, herself to her audience. So it's been really inspiring to see. I have, some old colleagues and friends at OCE that started a podcast during the pandemic, and it's called the Unlikely Innovators, if anyone is interested. But filling in a need in the ecosystem to share successful stories and helping listeners understand the landscape in Northern Ontario and innovation in Northern Ontario. So it's been really cool to see, I must say, because I don't know what or how they define success for themselves. But when they landed Chris Hadfield as a interviewer or interviewee, sorry, I wonder if, I wonder how excited they were about that, or if they ever thought that that would be, the day would come, or, that they'd have the opportunity to speak with Chris Hadfield, which is amazing. So all this to say that I am just very grateful to be surrounded by such inspiring individuals, and I just learned so much by being around them. So before I dive into grant writing, very interesting stuff. I just wonder if there are any questions. I don't have visibility in the chat or anything like that. Serena, is there anything?
No, I didn't see any question yet. But anyone, if you have any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, hearing none. So grant writing, as I mentioned it now with a bit of context, I think that it's just very natural for me to talk about grant writing and share some insights when it comes to non-dilutive funding. As I mentioned, a bit of a difference if, between non-dilutive and dilutive. But I think what really helps to sort of expand on my perspective is the fact that I have seen it from various views and perspective, right? So whether it was working closely with the companies and me myself as a technical consultant doing the writing, to my time spent as a understanding what the funder is looking for. So reviewers at the funding table and what they look for. So I'm hoping that we'll go through this together, and please again feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you might have. And sorry, before I do, of course, there was a session by Futurepreneur by Faria, and she did such a wonderful job at articulating how to write a business plan and to set yourself up, for success in that way with Futurepreneur. But a lot of the stuff that she has shared is relevant for grant writing. And the reason that we talk about lean startup methodology so much in the ecosystem is because again, you can sort of develop your business plan in a lean way, because it is meant to be iterated and something that you touch on frequently. But you'll see that a lot of the content as you iterate is useful for things like seeking funding, external funding. So the first sort of comment I'll make here is to always keep a pulse for what is out there. Things are always changing. Just reasoning because of political cycles, priorities within the city, province, Fed, like depending on, or global, depending on what you're looking at. So things are always changing, which can be challenging, but that also means that there, should be a revolving door of opportunities that come by, and finding the ones that are relevant to you as a founder. So what makes you as a unique founder, or that is relevant to your business, can position you for success because it fits their mandate for what the type of business that they're looking to support. Forecast and create a timeline. I This has always been sort of inherent. It makes sense. So, example, when the session in Finance 101, and to be able to budget something like this, it just makes good sense. And my time at Sabermetrics, we had made grants a part of our financial forecast at least 12 to 18 months out in terms of a roadmap, which meant, we were always doing a bit of a scrub for the type of funding and grants that are out there. And then with that, have a bit of planning and map it out in terms of what the next 18 months look like. The one thing I will share here, of course, is to always factor in review time, because yeah, that some of these grants are lengthy or complicated and does take time to be reviewed. So that's something to keep in mind, which ties into the next point, which is consider your ROI, so your return on investment for spending the time to complete these applications, to do the due diligence, to put the package together. Use external consultants if it makes sense. Ideally, you're doing this yourself, but ideally we're doing everything ourselves, I suppose. But like, you want to be smart about it. So if it is a larger grant, it might make sense to leverage somebody who's got experience, and have a track record of success in securing external funding, that you might want to lean on. That's something that you'll have to make as a business owner. If it's a very small grant, I spend the time. Like, you don't want to, like, the funding is meant for you and your business, and to grow, and not for external consultants. And another strategy is, maybe, if it's something that's recurring, example, if you are doing something that is, making technological advancements, and shred does make sense as an example, you may want to work with the consultants for a few years to understand and appreciate the program a little bit more, the ins and outs, and then you transition it, to having it being completed internally. So that's definitely possible, and something to consider. Understand the funding agency and source of funds. This is so critical. I mean, at the end of the day, you know your business best. So make sure that you also understand where the source of funding is coming from, their mandate, and little nuances will help you better position for your application for success. And also, it helps you to position it. So as much as you have done or continue to do legwork in developing your business plan, and as I mentioned, it will continue to change. These little nuances, you should take that into consideration when you're positioning for something specific to that fund, right? So you're speaking in their language and helping to articulate why you're relevant for this particular grant, and the type of impact that it can make on your business. Reach out to the funding agency and find an ally. This one is so important. I've always been the ally on that side of, to work closely with companies and businesses, and to help them understand what we look for as a funder. So find that ally, build a relationship, whether, we had built, as I mentioned earlier, a very good relationship with the CRA in the world of shred. But in terms of like a funding agency, someone like in Ontario Centers of Innovation could be a potential funder, let's say. Work with their business development team, see if it might even be possible for somebody to take a look at your draft or application. If you don't ask, you don't know, right? So if you can get some guidance, and I also think about someone like Faria from Futurepreneur. Once they're working with you, we want you to succeed, or the organization does. So definitely leverage that and start to build that relationship early. As always, like, listen to your intuition, and of course, weigh out the time that you spent in building these relationships and on grant funding, because let's not forget, you also have a business to run. So that is the balance that you will need to find. Answer the question. It sounds obviously it's a no-brainer, but a lot of time has gone into developing these applications. And if there's a lot of time that's gone into it with various partners behind the scenes. So by the time that the program has been developed and the application is made available to the public, just answer the question, be clear and succinct. Of course, write with passion, be professional. My personal preference is always to write in third person. That's, not always for everyone, just you have to make that judgment call. And also, one of the things and feedback that I always give to applicants is the ability to quantify anything that you can with your answers to help substantiate the claims that you're making and the statements that you're making. It definitely just makes it a bit more credible. So those are the key points, and I'll kind of go through some key questions that I've seen. But as I was putting this together, specifically the understanding the funding agency and source of funds is so important, because when there is a misalignment, it is perhaps time spent that you can spend somewhere else. One particular incident that came to mind was a growing company that was starting to see some really great traction early days. They're in the business of temporary tattoos, if anyone know which one I'm talking about. And they're starting to see some really great numbers, but ultimately the fit within the program was looking for something that is much more technological, I should say. And it maybe wasn't the greatest fit. However, as if you know the business that I'm referring to, they've gone on to be extremely successful and to have been acquired recently. So I think at the end of the day, you have to stick to your guns, so to speak. And again, you understand your business the best. But when you are doing the research and the due diligence for the source of funding and the mandates behind it, again, it just makes life a little bit easier, and you can position it for what they're looking for. Some key questions that always come up, and I think that hopefully you're starting to see a bit of a pattern here. When we talk about, what's on the left-hand side, this is essentially your lean canvas model. Like, this is your business plan, right? A lot of times in terms of the application for the funding, we want to know what is the pain point you are addressing, right? And then what is your solution and value proposition? Meaning, are you proposing something and addressing something that is need to have or a nice to have? How sticky is your solution? How compelling is it? That usually is definitely part of the application and the narrative. Demonstrating that you understand that you have competition to start with, but also that you understand your market and competitive landscape just provides credibility that you know what you're talking about. The team is extremely important, and as well as the execution, they go hand in hand. But describing your team is, of course, not only important, but helping to address the gaps is also critical. Reason is because, of course, early days, we understand that you are going to be a very lean team. You're likely wearing multiple hats and you're doing multiple things. But we have to bring ourselves back to reality and be realistic about it. So don't be a shy or afraid to talk about the gaps and skills gap and how you plan to fill those gaps and address them. Validation and traction speaks to the ability to quantify. So if you have X number of customers or engagements and you have feedback from those early engagements, share those data points, right? Examples of traction provides confidence that you will succeed as a team. So yes, you don't need to have all the answers right now, or you don't need to have done all the things that you are seeking out to do. But certainly if you've done some market testing, customer testing, engagement, whatever that is, make sure you do include that as part of the validation and traction to show that you are on the right path, or you're experimenting with different things and you have a bit of a plan. The use of funds is, I will say, a bit of a no-brainer. But what is important here is the use of funds tying to, generally funders want to understand how you're going to use the money, develop a bit of a budget and milestones table. Be realistic with your roadmap. Help reviewers understand where you are in terms of your roadmap, your product roadmap or go-to-market strategy. Help them understand how their money or the use, how you will be using the money and the impacts of it, right? So telling a story and the ability to communicate the impact of the funds to your business, make it compelling. And that piece there is quite important. And then finally, just making sure that you have the proper supporting documentation, if that is allowed. So attach any supporting documentation or references if you're able to. One of the things that I didn't share here is a lot of times within an application, there are word limits. I think that's something that has become very common, to make sure that applicants don't go on and on about things that are not relevant, but that get to the point, and being clear and concise is always valued. So making sure that you convey that in an effective way is important. And again, once you have a draft, have you built that ally from the funding organization or agency? Can somebody take a look at it and to provide some feedback before you submit? So those are some of the key things that I will point out. One of the things from Anu's session, again, the CEO of STEM Minds, it sounds like she's just created a really cool process to work with students. And that is, certainly something that companies will do very strategically. There are lots of support out there when it comes to working with students, making sure that students have the hands-on experiential learning ability to work with a company like yours. There are subsidies and other sources of funding to support that. But I'm sure, as Anu would sort of echo, it takes some learning upfront when you are working with students. But once you have that process in terms of funding cycle and how to manage and set up expectations with students, I think that it can become quite effective. So it sounds like she's doing an amazing job with that. Any questions about grant writing? Just all super clear. Oh,
I don't see any question in the chat yet.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me move on then. After this next little bit, Serena, I think we can take a quick break, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So defining success. This was important for me to put in here because as I have grown in myself and in my career, I've definitely learned to be more self-aware and knowing myself. So before, as I mentioned, you embark on a entrepreneurship journey, defining what success looks to you is critical. And whether you're early stage or later stage in your business or career, just constantly touching base with yourself to make sure that your values and priorities still align. What you define success is still rings true. Is just I guess when you're running a business, it's just so easy to keep your head down. because you have a million things to do. And if you have family or others to care for, it's just so easy to just keep on going on, right? So taking a step back to assess will for sure help, and to make sure that you're always in the right mindset and the mind frame, and to answer that why. Again, that why to you, why are you doing this, or what is the why of your business? um, is again, when you're in that right mindset, when opportunities come, or when you start to notice things that might be indicating that you should go in a different direction, having that awareness will help you obviously recognize it, and to maybe say, yeah, we need to either pivot, or we need to assess whether the timing is now for me and my family or priorities, whether to start a business is the right idea. A company comes to mind, and they're in the shipping and freight industry. And it's a group of just solid guys, a team that has developed something, and they've got a connection and history with the trucking industry, and the freight industry. But I think what became very clear for them was, they were, I mean, this is after listening to their customers, they were not providing what their customers were looking for. And so they took a step back and did something that was quite, took courage, because these young gentlemen all have family and young kids at home, but they sort of reconvene and decided that, yes, this is what we want to do, but we need to rethink about our value proposition. So they joined a program down in the States, in Silicon Valley, I believe, at the time, and did a extremely intense programming to help them refocus. And so they've come back to Toronto. They've redefined their value proposition, but they, still hung on to the conviction that there is something here. But to have that, again, self-awareness, and to take a step back and to reassess, was it paid off, because now I think I just read in the news that they had just secured a good piece of external investment. So that's, if you don't have a good sense of who you are and why you're doing it, when things happen, it is tough to assess. And just the last piece here, for this particular session, is that entrepreneurship is a journey. Personally, in addition to just seeing family and friends, of course, my partner right now, he's been on an entrepreneurship journey for the past 3 years. So we'll talk a little more about this later. But as an entrepreneur, you're not doing it on your own. You've got a support system, your community, and your network, that you're going to be leaning on early days, and hopefully down the road you're also giving back to this community. But it is a journey, and there are going to be twists and turns, and again, having that support system is important, but also checking in with yourself is equally as important. And what you expected or expect to happen may not happen, and we all know that that sounds like life. And so when it does, do you have the proper mindset to deal with it and to address it? So I think that, I'll sort of leave this piece here, in terms of, just, I think if anything, maybe take the next 5-10 minutes to assess, what you are hoping to achieve in your own business, and again, what success looks to you and to for your business. But also just, why you're doing it, right? And be open and honest with yourself. So, Serena, it's not quite 7 yet, but I'm wondering if this might be a good time to take a quick break.
Yeah, we can take a 10 minutes break and we will come back at 7.
Sounds good.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We will continue the session.
Sounds good, Serena. I just want to say I love that Sabrina had reached out to everyone to leave her contact information. And that is a given. You should always be building your network and making connections and use an opportunity like this to do it. Last year, I also volunteered as a mentor for a business in the streets program. And that, I think it was every week that we were meeting, that ended up being such a great networking opportunity, and to build that business and constantly be practicing your pitch. Remember, I think in some of the previous sessions, like that is it's just so important that you continue to, hone in on your messaging. So kudos to you, Sabrina, and everybody else. Drop your 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 details, your social handle, this and that. So welcome back, everyone. I am going to let me see. Yes, I have a few more slides, but this next little session is as I mentioned at the top of the evening, sort of I it's a Twitter style thread in the sense that, I'm sure you've come across, this headline, top things to look out for, or, top things to keep in mind as an entrepreneur, or in leadership and this and that. So, what's to come is really, again, based on my experience and what I have observed. So I hope that it is helpful, and hope to share a bit of context as we flow through this. So the first two is recapping. I don't know how many of you took the 5-10 minutes to maybe even just to close your eyes and to think about your why and how you define success. But I hope that whether it's tonight or another time, definitely do that. And if you have been doing it along the way, that's great. That's amazing. And just to make sure that you're, again, always checking in with yourself. Entrepreneurship, again, is a journey. This actually ties to point number 4, which is there's because of the ups and downs. When you have a win, celebrate the wins. Like, I think it was recently that my partner was sharing, some success in securing, a new customer or a new account. And again, in the life of an entrepreneur, it is just so easy to keep going and to dismiss things like that. But entrepreneurship and running a business is hard. So celebrate the wins. And then jumping back to point number 3, it takes a village. Who's heard of this term before, right? Like, it's been used so much, not just about raising a child, but entrepreneurship and a business is like your baby, and it takes a village to build it. So what this means is really take the time to build out your community, your people, and your network. These are, oh man, surround yourself with folks that have done it before, people like me that have been in the ecosystem in a more supportive role. These are your early champions. And of course, not to dismiss those within that are closest and dearest to you, is part of your core. So making sure that you are leaning on them, and that it takes you occupy their mind share as well, is what I'm trying to say. And I've often envisioned creating some sort of support group for those people whose partner or spouses is an entrepreneur. Maybe have like a sweater that says my partner is an entrepreneur, and then we can just see each other, and I can see someone and just be like, I see you, I hear you, because there are, day in day night out, my partners in the blockchain and capital markets industry. Maybe I don't want to hear about blockchain and capital market at the dinner table, whatever it is, right? So it does take a village. And be sure that you are building that community with intention, and that you're recognizing that you do occupy others' mind share, is my main point there. The thing about working with friends and family, dot dot dot. Oh boy, like there's just so much that I can share, and everybody's going to be different. But I think from my own personal experience and journey, it is one that I recognized at a young age in seeing my dad work with his friend. They had a countertop vanity business that they started in China using a engineered material at the time, and just things did not go well. And needless to say, and there's a friendship that obviously is no longer there. And I observed that at a very young age. And I think with that awareness, back to that, for myself, when family members or others that are close to me that have asked for me to partake or um, to work with them, no matter how enticing it may seem, I just always defaulted to no. And I just want to keep my friends and family as friends and family. And obviously, given my earlier slide in my presentation, I am surrounded by many. And of course, I do anything to help. But for me to actually do it, alongside with them to run a company, it just wasn't for me. But certainly there are success stories. That temporary tattoo company that I mentioned earlier is run by brothers, two brothers. Another business that I had, worked with was in the legal space, and three friends from out west, Western Canada. They all seem to have skills that complemented each other, and they have built a very attractive business that was eventually acquired by RBC. So, there are so many success stories, for ones that have worked, and, and also companies that are run by, two, like a wife and a husband as an example, and to be successful in understanding their roles, and the exactly the role that they play within the company. So there are ways. Another thing that came to mind was what Anu has shared. I think she had shared a very personal story about her starting out with a co-founder. I can't remember if it was a friend or not, but she alluded to, and this is worth re-highlighting, that having solid founder shareholder agreements up front is so important. And it is the best time to do it because, yes, you are all excited in gung ho early days, but just make it very clear that, if we are to enter into business together, then we need to make sure that we are, have best practices and also to protect ourselves. That is what it is, right? You never know what is going to happen, and you're not doing it with malintention. If anything, it is with good intentions that we have uh, agreements that are set in place in case something didn't happen or something didn't went wrong, etc. So you're protected. Tracking your progress, data is everything. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but Halcyon, the lady that did the branding and messaging session, said it perfectly. To not only do you collect data and to understand the metrics, but to layer it, right? To layer it and to start to correlate and start to tell a story about what the data is telling you about your business, and to tie that data and that story to revenue. So specifically, what are the data points that are driving revenue and success to your business? And then you can take a step back and be more strategic about it. So that is critical. And as I mentioned earlier, having that data just helps to amplify and bring credibility to the story that you're telling about your business when you can direct it to a data point or data set, um, and use it when you are applying for grants and loans or an external investment, whatever that may be. That's a great validator of your traction. Check your ego, stay humble. I can't stress this enough. Ego is uh, I think that I've heard that ego is a defense mechanism at the end of the day, but recognizing it and uh, just recognizing the inside voice when when that comes through, just being aware of it is so key. I can tell you that not just myself, but friends and colleagues of mine, when we are meeting founders and businesses after business, the founder character matters, of course. And to this day, like I remember, founders that really stood out, and one in particular was extremely humble, maybe perhaps too humble, but anyway, he just carried himself very well, and was able to just convey some of his successes in a very modest way. Things like that resonate, and I believe that particular company, the founder, they were also acquired by a larger party, and so, not to say that that was the reasoning, but certainly, especially if you're an early stage startup, you're going to be a lean team. How you carry yourself certainly matters. um, People are gonna, it's innate in people's nature to weigh in on your business, make comments, this and that. Take it with humility. Stay humble. Yes, you are, you know your business best, but you can again respond in a humble way. And then the other thing about ego is I've seen young entrepreneurs come very early days of their, let's say, coming out of college or university, and they're starting a business and they're getting all this attention, and now they're like sort of the hot shot of the year. And then I, keep in touch with them. And then over time, maybe it's just a factor of time and age, but you see how they mature over the years as a founder. Maybe it's through, no doubt their successes and failures that shape their character. So sometimes, it takes that time to develop the character, but at the end of the day, again, ego, keep it in check, stay humble. And then, of course, when it comes to relationships and going back to working with friends and family, I can't tell you how many times I have seen, founders breaking up or businesses not working out because of ego, and that does affect things. So that's I think that's a big one for me. Eight, lead and empower people. You're in such an incredible position as a leader of your business, to lead. And what I've seen, and many have seen over the years, the businesses that are successful, when you're entered into a company, and you sort of observe around the relationship, how one speak with another, how colleagues speak with each other, the culture starts to resonate. And the ones that have created a very positive culture is one where leadership and management have embraced their team's differences, ideas, encourage innovation within an organization. Like, all these things are incredible. And as an entrepreneur and as a founder, you have the ability to do this. And when you lead and then embrace and empower people, just I think only good things can come out of that. And on the topic of culture, Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast by the Peter Drucker, very well known management consultant and writer. And this one makes me laugh because my partner always talks about strategies, is one of his favorite words. But not that he forgets about culture, but certainly thinking about culture and always having it top of mind is so crucial. At the end of the day, you're not going to build this business on your own. You're going to rely on your team, and to just lay some very, positive foundation. And I think it was Judy that had done the session on leadership and, team building. So critical. A lot of the things that she shared, some really great nuggets in there. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I've heard of this so many times throughout my career, and in previous sessions as well. Other speakers have talked about preparing for worst case scenarios. I think Faria from Futurepreneur, they now have a section to talk about, how do you address, pandemics, or, how the effects of COVID to your business. It's a very real thing. And, putting yourself in the position to think about, how do you make your business less fragile? What is the strategy to stay alive, right? And for, having that financial health and staying alive for at least 12, 18 months, like, how do you set up for that? So hoping for the best, prepare for the worst. This was first introduced to me as a shred consultant because, even though we had a very great success rate, audits do happen. And that's always something that is at the back of my mind, is preparing for the worst, in the worst case scenario. And similarly, in other sessions about people management, similarly, same um, thing rings true is to get ahead of conflict and ahead of situations before it happens, and just to position yourself and think for about the worst case and how you might address it. Understand your why and practice your pitch. I don't know how many times I have said this now in tonight's session, but specifically practicing your pitch is, don't take this lightly. You know, the concept of an elevator pitch still rings true. You've got, how long is an elevator ride? I guess depending how many floors you're going up or down, but having that just short period of time to catch somebody's attention, making sure that you practice what yeah, that narrative is so important. Just keep practicing and keep sharing it, and then that messaging is going to solidify, and it's going to be more polished throughout the years. What's really cool is that when I re-entered back into the innovation ecosystem, and I have seen now some of the businesses that I met like 5-6 years ago, and some of the news that has come out, their why a lot of the time is still the same. And that to me is, incredible, because I think when you have a strong sense of your why as a company, that is going to just that conviction, like you are sticking to it. And that is the story you're telling. That is the narrative. That is your pitch. So keep, keep practicing that pitch and doing it over and over again. One particular story, and is a business that has grown over the years as a female founder in the jewelry business over multiple generations, and looking to disrupt it in a way to empower ourselves and each other. And her messaging from the very beginning has been that, to empower ourselves and each other, to be able to buy, purchase jewelry, and not to see it as, an excuse for a gift, but to put ourselves into that control. And empowerment is very, still rings true. Early days, she used brand and influencers to help convey that message. I think that that's definitely, of course, served her well. And of course, the empowerment without compromising the quality of her product was another big thing. And also, I think at the time, buying jewelry online wasn't a common practice. So, on multiple levels. But for me, when I look at her as a founder, and after all these years, again, her why is just so strong, and it continues to be so true. Talk to your customers. I think that this was a recurring theme in previous sessions. How many times I have heard, know your customers, understand your target customers, create the customer personas. What do you do when another group that you didn't think were your target customers come to you as your customers? Just so important. Obviously, these are the folks that are going to be helping you drive your revenues and grow your business. Talk to them. Talk to them, ask for their feedback, especially the early days, day ones, so that you have a better grasp of why are they buying your service or product, and and ways that you can do better. So, and that's an exercise that one should be doing consistently. Your business best, but always seek feedback. That ties back into talking to your customer. So pretty straightforward there. Hire people that complement you. And this was, I really enjoyed, I think it was Adriana's session about hiring best practices, and start to develop the value proposition to your employees. We're in a market right now where it is hard to secure candidates and employees. So as you are going out and seeking talent, making sure that you develop what that value proposition is a great idea. And I think, I mean, it's a must-have. So making sure that you spend some time there is important. Understand the power of your narrative with your customers. In addition to what I was speaking about before, and conveying your why and what you stand for as a business and as a founder, and also when I was reflecting on my favorite service-based businesses, we are all now in an era of technology where we have direct access, whether it's through Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever it is, that we have direct access to communicate to our audience. So understanding the power of that, like i.e., we don't need to go through a media channel. Let's say you have the control to speak directly with your customers, and I think that can work in your benefit or not, depending on, so having a good sense of, again, who you are and what your brand is important, because whenever you are speaking with your customers through some of these media channels, it's important that it's consistent. People know when it's not, right? Think of yourself as a consumer. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is your responsibility, similar to the fact that you are in a position of leadership and leading a company, growing your company, hiring folks. This is something that you absolutely need to spend time on understanding, and your role as a leader. I one of the When I was going through the previous sessions, I went into one from the last cohort, by, I can't remember her name, it was Naomi, I think, something, and her session on EDI was so good. So, in addition to all the sessions that you have attended in this particular semester or cohort, take the time to scrub through Y Space's YouTube channel, because there's some really great sessions um, from previous cohorts. The thing about timing, not that timing is everything, but I back to the self-awareness. Are you aware enough to recognize it when it comes knocking on your door? And do you have the courage to pursue it? When I think about this, I think about when we were younger. I don't know how many times we tried to encourage my mom to open up a Vietnamese pho restaurant, like when there were none, and there was definitely a growing demand for it. We were part of a huge wave of new immigrants from Vietnam, and that, it's just, for her, that wasn't her cup of tea, and she was, no matter what we did or say, she wasn't going to do that and start her own business. But the other thing about timing is, sometimes you're in an industry where you're in a very transformative technology where things haven't caught up yet. I think about, sectors like quantum computing, or even AI, machine learning, early days. And so sometimes timing is with regards to that. Yeah, do you have the awareness to recognize it when it comes knocking on your door? Addressing conflict, don't let it fester. I have a page where I have some books that have resonated with me over the past couple years, and one of them is called Radical Candor, and just how you can address conflict head on, and to make sure that you don't let the time pass, but there isn't a way to do it through empathy, and in a very humane way. So if you haven't checked that book out before, I highly recommend it, along with some other titles that I'll be sharing in a bit. Don't do things for free. Um, i.e., like, and 19 and 20 go hand in hand. You're always selling. I've, over the years, come across entrepreneurs, especially younger ones, and I would say female entrepreneurs have a tendency to do this, and feeling bad about charging for your service and product. We need to get over that. Like, we should not be doing things for free, even early days when it is very compelling to do something for free. I mean, if it's a part of your strategy, in terms of, I think there was a session on pricing and doing a freemium model, but knowing what the end game or what the next step is going to be to generate revenue, that's fine. But if you are following something like that, ask for something in return, especially early days. Ask for feedback, ask for your customers' time to sit down with you, going through your service and what can be better, let's say, or a product, and the user interface and experience, and what can be done, but just basically don't do things for free. um Intrapreneur versus entrepreneur, I did that poll at the very beginning, and some of you are thinking, cool, this is interesting material, but I don't know about starting my own business and this whole entrepreneurship thing, if it's for me or not. Being an intrapreneur, what that means is, no matter where you are, my feeling, and it is my belief, that whether you're in a large organization or a growing company, whatever it is, everybody's got the capacity to lead and to innovate. And if you're lucky enough to be within an environment where management or leadership embraces that, like, run with it, and then you become you have the ability to innovate within. I think you're going to find that very rewarding. So What I was saying at the very beginning of the session, all the materials that you have gone through in the past weeks is not wasted, not even a bit. Like I think that you can take that and play a very critical role within the company that you're with if you're not starting one on your own. And ties to number 22, which is again, regardless of title, everyone has the capacity to lead. There was another book that I didn't include in my books page, but it's about the title. Sorry, the leader who had no title. I think it's what it's called. But basically, anybody has the capacity and should be carrying yourselves as a leader. Staying lean in the world of Eric Weiss's book, Lean Startup. That's their main thesis. This one is so important. I recently had a coffee with a friend who's starting her own business, and she was in the design and development phase of her website, and after putting down a deposit, the group that she was engaging with just ran off with the money. And I think that was a real, not just shock, obviously, but a reality check. And she took it upon herself to say, this is my company, this is my brand, I am going to own this. And she just jumped right in and learned all the tips and tricks of creating a website. She's also developed all her packaging. I am so excited for her to launch it. But when I look at, her material now, it is her through and through. And I think about that. If whatever you're embarking on, the journey that you're going on, own it. And for this reason alone, and the ability to stay lean and to do things yourself, I really, really enjoyed Cisa's session on digital skills. She had shared so many free options and methods and ways in which you can develop like a website, no code, get to an MVP quickly, no code, just getting to something that you're able to demonstrate to your customers, right? Following the lean startup method. Yeah, so if you, I think that's a session that's worth revisiting. I know I will. And the last few here, had a colleague and a friend, and at the bottom of her signature was always think big, start small, which rings very true for, again, the lean startup model. And in terms of working with companies throughout the years, this is definitely true. Like thinking big in terms of the market opportunity, the pain point, and the problem that you are addressing, but start small, iterate and grow, that way. And then finally, be authentic. It's again one of those no-brainer things, and of course you're going to be authentic, but because you have a direct voice to your audience and to your customers, think about when you're on as a consumer or a customer, when someone's not being genuine or authentic, it just, it's likely something that just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I know it does for me. And the reason that I purchase or support is for authentic leaders, authentic founders, and authentic businesses. So you yourself choose to be an authentic leader. I'll leave it with there was a saying by the book Dare to Lead, which is on my books page by Brene Brown. And she says, you cannot connect with others until you're connected with yourself. And on the note of being authentic and understanding yourself and being aware, that's something that I'm happy to leave in terms of my key takeaways. So just a couple more slide here to wrap things up. This is just more of as a reference slide to reiterate that, yes, it takes a village. And here are some examples. And you've already tapped into, such great resources like WiseBase and the Markham Small Business Center, Ella. These are your local small business enterprise centers and support, entrepreneurship programs, incubators, accelerators, college, university, as I mentioned, great source of talent pool and funding for your business as you grow. And online, Google is your best friend. What I wanted to say here is your village wants you to be successful. Don't forget your village. I think back to when I first started at OCE in particular, and then coming back later into this space. when I come across a success story, my heart just smiles, and I'm just so inspired, and I'm doing a happy dance for the company and for the founder. And it's just incredible that time has passed. I've continued on with my life, and you guys are the hustlers, and the companies continue to hustle. They grind it out. And it is just so amazing to see when it leads to somewhere positive. So don't forget your village. We're your early cheerleaders, as you grow your business. And then, of course, when you're in a position to do so, give back. Give back to the community in whatever capacity you can. That's just as important. So that's it for me. I reflection and discussion. It's been a pretty quiet group, but I would love to hear if there's any final thoughts that you'd like to share with me, or with the group here. As I mentioned, we're a collective here. We're all here to support each other. But I really enjoyed my time with you. I This is just a collection of books, and there's just so many more. But for me, these ones really resonated, that I've leaned on for the past few years. And it's a combination of not only business and startup life, but leadership, of course, and a lot of just self exploring, and, exploring our own journey and sort of our purpose, in terms of, how do we serve that. But of course, books and other resources are only resources. And I love this one. It was from the Canva template, but words of wisdom, motivation can come from other sources, but in the end, it's up to you. So if you do decide to go on this journey, all the very best, and you have to champion yourself. You got this. I hope that this was helpful. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. I would like to open this for Q&A. There's a question from Sherry. Where can I find resources for entrepreneurship?
There are so many. I'm sure Serena, Marlena, Joshua can chime in on this, but for entrepreneurship in general, online is where to start. I think it depends on, did you have a specific question about entrepreneurship? Because it's such a broad topic. And as you have seen through the previous weeks and sessions, there's so many different components to entrepreneurship. So I wonder if there's a more specific question to that. But yeah, online is where I would go first. And then, lean on Serena and the group here, including myself, if you have specific questions.
Yeah, Sherry, feel free to unmute yourself if you have specific area you want to ask. But first of all, what I'm thinking is Y-Space is definitely a location that you can find a lot of resource about entrepreneurship. I share the Y-Space email in the chat. Feel free to email us. And we also have Ella program and MSBC, the Markham Small Business Center, which is your local government department that offers a lot of entrepreneurship resources and supports. They also offer idea consultations and mentorships and programs. So if you have any question about our programs or about MSBC or Ella, I can send more information here.
Thank you so much. I think that'll be great.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there any other questions? You can unmute yourself. What's the best advice to apply for grant, and can you share some resource?
And again, Serena and team, please feel free to chime in. But often, again, online, and specifically if you have, if you can narrow down your search, that will generally help. So example, if you're a social enterprise, service-based, and you want to seek something that is within that realm, just be specific in your Google search or your general web search. But there also is, I don't know if NRC Concierge still exists, but I can do some digging and share some links with Serena after the fact. But NRC Concierge is meant to be your first, your sort of one-stop shop, right? And it's a team of folks that are made aware of grants and subsidies and loans and various things that you can take advantage of as a business, depending on the type of business that you are. There are also online tools now. I think there's one called MentorWorks. I don't know if that is still in use, but again, similarly, it'll ask you some very initial qualifying questions. Examples can be, are you incorporated? How long? Do you have employees? What is the industry or product or service that you're offering? And then it tries, because it's not perfect. And as I mentioned earlier, things are always changing, but it tries to do a curated list for you. And then you can take a deeper dive into how to explore pursuing that funding. Serena, did you want to add anything? And of course, again, groups like Y Space and Ella and the Markham Small Business Center, these are all are your people, like your network that you want to stay in touch with. And in case, so one of the things I will say is my role at SOSIP as an example. There are, because we provide the technology resources, but oftentimes projects need to have funding, right? So we work with funders in the ecosystem. But if you make yourself known to groups like the ones that are here today, we'll think of you. Like if you're able to, again, share with us your pitch, your business, then when something comes along, we're going to say, yes, so and so business is in this space. They fall within that. They need to take advantage of this. So there's word of mouth, online search. It's just, a mishmash of things. Yeah, Serena, Marlena, Joshua, I wonder if there's anything else that you guys can add to that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like be active in the innovation ecosystem is very important. And also one tip I want to share is before you actually apply the grant or the program, just make sure you send an email with all the situations and business types and everything. So make sure that they reviewed it and say you're eligible to apply before you actually make some like effort.
Yeah, absolutely. That is super key. Like eligibility, you don't want to be wasting your time for something and then only to find out later that you weren't eligible to begin with.